Hi, I wanted to just give a short video to my subscribers to kind of catch y'all up on what's happened. And thank you so much for not leaving my channel, even though I wasn't posting for the past quarter. And I think last week or the week before, I posted two. And so I want to tell you a little bit about what's going on. But this is especially a message for any of you out there that are struggling with um, diabetes or hypertension. And I just want to share my personal experience and kind of give you a vote of encouragement as you might be battling something similar. So first of all, I want to say that the reason you weren't seeing any videos for a while is because first of all, I changed teams and then just getting back into the swing of the new team. But also, I took a medical leave for the last quarter. And basically, my determination was to kind of get control over um, my health issues, right? Because they had become so persistent that I was finding myself in the emergency room. And I'm too old to be taking chances like that, right? I don't, I kind of want to keep living so I can keep making apps and keep making flows and keep being a power platform enthusiast. And so I said, okay, I'm going to take work off my plate and I'm just going to focus on my health. And fortunately, I was able to do a lot of research and kind of find a lot of things. I will say, I think, I have a few messages to share with you, but I will start by saying everybody's experience is different. No two experiences are exactly the same. No two bodies are exactly the same. But this particular disease, and I guess I'm going to call it a disease, has particularities that are fairly consistent, and so kind of have to get started somewhere. And the biggest thing I hope you have is a good doctor. Um, I had medical care, but I do have trouble sometimes getting a good doctor. For the most part, it appears that doctors are rare, and I'm often assigned nurses, which doesn't mean that they're not as good as doctors, but I'm just being transparent. I had very little doctors supporting me in my journey. Um, I just had two nurses. Um, well, I'm gonna add the most recent nurse, which is three nurses. But apparently, diabetes and hypertension is so popular. I'm going to use that word. I don't have a better word in the United States, and especially, I guess, where I live, that you really have to be in a critical state to even see a specialist. Um, and I was at a critical state at the beginning of the 3 months, and I was given my nurse gave me a referral to a specialist. But by the time they finally contacted me, um, which was somewhere around 10 weeks later, my AC1, which is one of the numbers that you track as a diabetic, had gone down substantially. And they said they wouldn't see me anymore because they only take those critical AC1s, which was really frustrating because it's like, okay, so punish me for doing better. But I think that is the first thing that came to my attention is that I could not get to a doctor and I could not get to a specialist. It seemed like both of those things, and the specialist that I wanted to see was an endocrinologist, which I always have a hard time pronouncing. They're almost impossible to get your hands on. So if you're a young girl, child, and you're just thinking about what are you going to do when you grow up, please be a diabetic specialist. Please be a doctor in the world of endocrinology because we definitely need you, right? So why do I think it's so important to kind of see a specialist is because most nurses, and I assume doctors as well, don't have a lot of time to educate you. So when you meet with these nurses or even, maybe you find a busy doctor, they don't have a lot of time to educate you. They will go very often, straight to prescribing medication. And there are very typical medications for this. And as it gets really bad, or if it becomes diabetes type 1, you may have to go on insulin. But the conversation of where this came from, what you can do to reduce the likelihood that you will be on medication for the rest of your life, they don't have, it appears they don't have the bandwidth. So seeing an endocrinologist enables you to get that education. So when I went to the hospital that I love here in my area, but these are hospitals where there are specialists. That's all they do is diabetes. That's all they do is nutrition and things like that. So I now have a nutritionist, which is helpful, but I never did get a specialist. But the hospital gave me a lot of material. I'm talking like a whole book of material that they printed out for me and put into a little binder and organized it in a very nice way so that I could read it and learn. But they also gave me a nutritionist, who could sit down and explain these principles to me in light of diabetes, which was, wow, this is awesome. I'm finally getting some education. So big kudos to Evergreen. But I do beg all young people who are planning to go into medicine, please become an endocrinologist, because we definitely don't have enough here in the US. But in the meantime, while I was waiting to see a specialist or hoping to see a specialist, I was doing my own research. Now, I will tell you about my research with the understanding that the research that I did not lead me to any particular medical specialist. It just led me to people who were very knowledgeable in this. And I will put links to their YouTube channels below. But I will specifically say thank you to Dr. Berg, because Dr. Berg, the two videos, I'll put them in the description, that kind of got my attention was one where he interviewed a woman who had the same AC1 as I did, and another one where he explained diabetes from start to finish. What is it? How does it act in your body? And actually, the most important thing was, what can you do, right? What can you do to help fix the problem? So, and this is where, I've learned a couple things, that diabetes, hypertension, they have multiple contributors. And I would say the three contributors that stand out the most is the obvious one that everybody thinks of first, which is diet. If you're living off of pasta all day, every day, or candy all day, every day, or white flour all day, every day, and maybe you got a little extra pounds, you might be heading towards pre-diabetic, because the more sugar you intake into your system, and some carbs convert to sugars, the more likely those things can get out of balance, right? But that's only one contributor. Another contributor is genetics, right? My mom, my brother, I would say most of my family dealt with hypertension and high blood pressure. So it's in my genetics, it's in my genes. And when something's in your genes like this, you have to kind of be more alert than others who don't have that genetic tendency. And then the third contributing factor is how much you move. So unfortunately, I have a job where I love building apps, right? And once COVID kicked in, right, there was no travel. We lost our travel budget, because I used to travel like once a quarter. So I'd be on a plane, I'd be at hotels, I'd be traveling through cities, I'd be walking a lot at conferences or conventions. And so I was getting exercise just in, being an evangelist, right? But COVID hit and then we got locked down, and then I got used to the lockdown and ended up habitually in my chair in my office. And even my presentations were all remote on Teams, and I didn't have to stand up for them. I could just sit there and give my presentations with my PowerPoint deck running. So I got into a very bad habit. And it's interesting, if you look back at 2018, 2017, I was very active at our local sports club. I was playing racquetball, I was going to the step class, I was occasionally going to Zumba. Now, I was never like a skinny athletic person, but I was active. But COVID kind of picked me on my booty, and I stopped. I stopped even being social. So, my girlfriends and I would go out dancing. Okay, I can't tell you the last time I've been dancing, but did that pretty often in 2018, 2019, right? And so now I really look forward to going dancing one day. I also look forward to being able to travel again comfortably. But that all changed the way I move. Okay, so let's go back to the 3 contributing factors. And there are many, but I'm going to add one more after I give you these 3, which I think are the top, right? The diet, what you're taking in, how much sugar you're eating will contribute to a tendency towards diabetes, and how much salt you taking in can contribute to hypertension, right? And then secondly, in not just diet, but also what was the second thing I said? So diet, and then how you move your body, because if you're not moving at all, then you won't be able to burn any sugar that you're taking in, because you can't go 0 sugar, because there's sugar in certain foods, even fruits. And then I think the other thing I mentioned was genetics, which you basically have no control over genetics. But related to genetics, I will say this is the 4th thing I want to add, and it kind of follows nicely behind genetics, even though it's not exactly the same thing, is hormones, right? So I'm going to give you an example of the biggest enemy that I met, that I didn't know about this enemy before this all came down, but the biggest enemy that I met was cortisol. And this is a hormone that will do such damage. And why do I say that? It is naturally built in humans to support the fight or flight, when we're in danger. It gives us the extra energy we need to fight or flight, right? But how many of us are really in those kind of situations today? Especially if, we're in a professional desk job. Fight or flight is probably only, okay, I want this time slot for the meeting and you want that, so let's fight over which one of us get that time slot. I mean, we don't need cortisol for that. We're not fighting dinosaurs. We're not trying to run away from a leopard or a tiger. We are just living through, peer pressure occasionally, right? So we don't have a need for it like we used to, but that doesn't mean it disappears. Evolution keeps these things in our system. And so, and maybe one day we won't have it, but we still have it. And the things that cause it to pop up is stress, first of all, because stress kind of triggers that. And if you live your life in fight or flight, and I'll name some people who live their lives in fight or flight, people who do like, what do you call it? Rush sports where the whole goal is to get a rush, like maybe they're doing something that may be risky for your life. Like I can think of a lot of things, but those things that give you a rush, right, most likely are stress triggers that would trigger more cortisol, right? Here's one that I bet all of you don't even know affects you. You don't get enough sleep. You sleep 4 hours, 5 hours. That cortisol doesn't have the time to process through your body in the evening or whenever you sleep, whether you're a night worker or a day worker. But you need to sleep. Otherwise, cortisol will be an energy supplier for you. So that's one that I definitely was guilty of, sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night. I like to play chess for 3 hours. I like to work until it's 9 o'clock. I like to, so I had all this, like, I had an itinerary during the night that was more than the itinerary during the day. And so I had the candle lit on both ends to the point where I put myself into insomnia, like can't sleep. Okay. But that is the quickest way to get cortisol overloaded in your system, which will in the morning spike cravings, right? So if you want to crave sweets, if you want to crave eating more than you need to, just get some extra cortisol in your system and that'll be easy. It also increases stress. And so you really need to think about sleep. So, there are other situations where it may be out of your control. So let's say worst case scenario, let's say you're a domestic violence situation, right? You're in fight or flight, literally, very often, okay, because of the circle of domestic violence. In that case, and in others where that rush or that stress trigger cannot be avoided, then you need to really focus on wellness. And that means giving yourself some wellness time to take care of yourself, whether that be just go for a walk and stop thinking about whatever's stressful, or get a support system. So that means, friends or others that you can talk to, that you can go visit, that maybe will come visit you. Get a support system behind you so that you're not alone in dealing with the stress. I won't give any advice on what you should do. I'm not saying you shouldn't do those sports. I'm not saying anything about domestic violence as far as what you should do. That's a decision you should make. But you have to manage the stress, which means it has to balance out. So maybe you have a day of rush sports, but then another day of meditation or some spa time where you go, lay down and get a massage, right? But balance, right, is really important, because stress is an enemy of both diabetes and hypertension. And I have to admit, I have had problems managing stress, right? And I think one of the things that I've learned in my years, like as an older person in a career, is, putting yourself at risk for the sake of your career is the most negative thing you can do. So if your career is not able to move and you're doing the best you can, then you need to talk about that to somebody. You need to talk to your manager. You need to talk about it. And if you talk about it and you can create some type of plan so that your career can move, that's great. But it shouldn't require that you spend all your waking hours working. It should be a balanced plan, right? It should be a plan that takes advantage of your assets. It's a plan with a growth mindset that says you'll need to learn some new things maybe, but there should be a plan that is manageable, that is not taking your weekends or your evenings away from you, because you need that downtime. And I'm telling you this from experience, because I made the mistakes that I'm asking you, don't make them. Don't make these mistakes. Give yourself some playtime. Give yourself some time to just chill. Like, for me, it was almost impossible to sit still. I always felt I needed to be productive. Not anymore. I can spend an afternoon reading a book, and it's not even a self-help book. It's just a romance novel or a sci-fi novel. I enjoyed reading Ready Player One from front to back in one day. I literally just sat in my chair and read Ready Player One. And since you already know, if you follow this channel, that I do love mixed reality, that was a great experience for me to just do that. And I had never really done that before, like allowed myself to just enjoy a book and not stress over what I could be doing, right? How much of Dataverse do I need to learn? I didn't worry about that. I'm happy with my ability to learn during the work week, and to grow my skills in all the products that I support. I'm not going to give my personal time away for that. And this type of balance is actually going to be beneficial to your health. And if you find that it's negative to your career, if you find that you cannot be balanced in order to have career velocity, then you need to be checking the wanted ads. You need to be on LinkedIn looking for a new job. Because if you lose your health, you will never have the job that will appreciate you. But if you keep your health, you'll always be the best you can be. And everyone will appreciate you. So, that's my big message to all of you. In addition to thanking you for waiting while I was out, and not leaving my channel or stop subscribing to me. And as I come back to work, which I'm back to work now, I want to kind of continuously be adding content. Please let me know what content you want to see. I'm crazy about Dataverse, but I also love Power Apps. I love Power Automate. I love Power Virtual Agents. These are things I'm also passionate about. So don't hesitate to ping me and say, hey, do something about bots or do something about flows inside bots. I don't mind doing stuff like that. I love talking about the Power Platform because it's empowering. So before I drop off this video, I've given you a nice update. I will give you two more things. One is the results of my medical leave. So I started my medical leave with every number in my lab. So when you take labs, you go to the doctor, you take labs. You get numbers. You get numbers for cholesterol. You get numbers for glucose, which is the sugar in your system. You get an AC1 number related to that. You get a number for, I'm trying to think of the other things you get. You get like 5 different really important numbers. And of those 5 numbers, including hypertension, all of my numbers were like 3 times above normal. So look at the normal line. Normal ends at this number, right? And each one has a different normal. Normal ends at this number. I was 3 times above that number, which is not good. That's very bad. Okay. It would be better to be below that number, right? Not too far below, but it would be better to be below than to be 3 times above. So scared the life out of me. But here's the good news. Are you ready to hear the good news? Those of you that have stayed all the way to the end of this video. The good news is most of my numbers are completely normal. And I'm working now mostly on the hypertension, which has to do mostly with me managing my salt intake, my exercise program, and my stress. Okay. But everything, even my doctor was amazed because I dedicated myself. And I dedicated myself to 3 things. 1, eating better. And I lowered carbs considerably. No unhealthy carbs, but increased the amount of healthy fats I took in, which helps balance that sugar over time. Okay, so food was my first commitment. Second was moving, so exercise. My company is amazing. Microsoft is the best company when it comes to benefits. There's no better than Microsoft. They got me an elliptical machine, and I got to get on top of that machine. I started out with 10 minutes a day because that's all I could do. That's so sad. I'm so embarrassed. But now I'm up to 30, 40 minutes a day. So very happy about that. And then sleep. Really working hard to sleep every night so that cortisol kind of is friendly with me and doesn't, lead to cravings and such. And my blood sugar will be low when I wake up in the morning. So great news. I'm doing great. Keep holding me accountable, those of you who know what I'm talking about. And then the other thing I'll share with you before I leave are the tools that I used. So You know, I'm girl geek. In most environments, I'm called girl geek on Instagram and most places because I'm a geek. I love technology. So I did use technology in this journey. First of all, the Freestyle Libre 3, and I'll put this on the screen and in the description, was a glucose monitor that seamlessly, painlessly stays in your arm and continuously monitors your glucose. The beautiful thing about that Libre 3 is your insurance pays for it, and you can see when something you ate spikes your sugar. You can see it right on the monitor right away. So it teaches you quite a bit. It also teaches your doctor trends because it's data driven, right? Second thing that I want to tell you about is this site called Withings, Withings. It's another site that I didn't know about before, but I was able to get a scale from them, and that measures my weight, my BMI, my amount of fat in my body, amount of muscle in my body, the amount of water in my body. And so um, that was one. I also got the blood pressure monitor. Now, Withings is a cloud-based technology so that every time you take a measurement, it goes up to the cloud. So I'll give you their link and you can find out about it. And you can link that cloud instance to anything else you're using. Like if you're using Health app in Apple iPhone or in the Apple Watch, you can connect all of that together and start using that together with other things to monitor your health. And then the last thing I did for tracking food intake was MyFitnessPal. And good thing about MyFitnessPal is they just gave a brand new feature that allows you to track intermittent fasting. So since I was doing intermittent fasting, 8-16, so 8 hours of eating, 16 hours of fasting, MyFitnessPal also helped me track my intermittent fasting. And I'll leave you details about that below. But that was also extremely helpful for keep getting my glucose down early in the first half of my leave, because you're eating less and therefore there's going to be less insulin resistance because you're eating less, because it's when you eat that these things that happen in your body happen when you eat. So I ate less. In other words, I ate twice in 24 hours. And therefore there was less insulin resistance going on other than the hormonal type. So I'll leave those links below. The only negative thing I will say, I'll be honest about Withings, is that pairing their devices is not easy. So the scale paired relatively fast, I would say 3 or 4 tries, but the blood pressure monitor, it took me days to get that thing to actually pair and report up to the cloud. So I think they could do some work with their Bluetooth technology, but everything else I just mentioned worked beautifully. I give the biggest kudos to the Libre 3. It's a Freestyle product, and it educated me on my body, what makes my body different from other people's body. So I hope this clarifies why I've been away a little bit. I'm still on a journey to get better, but good news is, I'm on the right track. My numbers are all great. I even was able to lose 25 pounds of fat off my body, which was a consequence. It was not something I intended to do. I didn't care about my weight. I cared about living every day. It's like my nutritionist asked me the other day, are you missing pasta? And I said, I don't know, compare pasta to death. I think I'll go with, doing the right thing and hold off on a lot of pasta. But she did give me some alternatives for pasta. There's some different types of pasta that is more healthy than the white flour type pasta. But it was just funny. I was like, when it comes to living, I'd much rather live than have a bagel. And if I can have a healthy bagel every now and then, great. If I can't, if my blood sugar won't respond well to bagels, I'm willing to give it up. If it gives me more years of life, I'll find other things to love. Like, for instance, this might surprise you. My favorite food was lasagna, but I have learned to make my favorite food something else. And right now it's a salad at the Barking Frog restaurant in Woodinville, and it is oxtails. I love oxtails. I make them myself to control the salt. But you see, everything's possible. You can enjoy this journey. I want you to know that I don't feel deprived at all. I spend my time researching and finding good food, new techniques for cooking food that is good as well as healthy. And I encourage you to do the same. I don't want you to arrive at my age with this problem. I'd rather you prevent it early in life. If you can prevent it early, that's the thing to do. Because once it sets in, once it gets comfortable in your body, you're gonna have to go through medication. You're gonna have to go through a lot of change management to get healthy. So nip it in the butt right now. Get out there, do your exercise, eat correctly. Clean eating is the right way to eat. Eat clean, um, and take care of yourself because there's only one you. There's only one you, and you can't trade you in for somebody else, right? It's not like a car, right? So take care of you, please. I'm telling you this from experience. This was not a fun thing to face, but I want you to know that if you have to face it, it's doable. It's doable, but it takes a little bit of discipline and it takes time. Nothing really worthwhile is instant fix. It takes time, and it will probably take me years to get control of this, but I'm hoping to beat it. I'm really hoping to beat it. So thank you again for sticking with my channel. I hope this update helped you to understand why I've been so quiet. And I want you to know I love you. I love the Power Platform. And I'm going to keep making content, and I'm going to keep doing my best to be healthy for you so I can help you make those optimized applications with the Power Platform. So I wish you the best. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I'll be talking to you soon.